In the last hours, we are learning more and more about the discovery of the body of a gorgeous young mom, Rachel Morin. She's just absolutely stunning. What we're learning is that Rachel Morin's body was found near the Ma and Pa Trail, on the Ma and Pa Trail, and this was in Bel Air, Maryland, about 30 to 50 minutes from Baltimore. It's a remote trail. It's a very popular trail. She was found near a tunnel, and according to a man that says he found her, we now think actually his stepdaughter may have found Rachel. She was completely naked, lying on her back, exposed to the wilderness, and according to him, it looked as if someone was trying to erase her identity. One whole side of her head was bashed in, basically gone. And we are learning that according to him, I'm calling him Michael G., there's a trail of Jack, wasn't it like 20 feet of blood? 15 to 20 feet of a blood trail. What do we know? We know that her boyfriend, her new boyfriend, he had just announced on social media 4 days before her murder that they were a couple. He's under suspicion. He has a rap sheet, 14 arrests since 2014. But there are many other cases where female victims are found out hiking or jogging who have been attacked by complete strangers. For instance, in Memphis, we just covered the case of Eliza Fletcher, a young mom out jogging about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. She was kidnapped, I believe sex assaulted and murdered by a rapist, Cleotha Abston. Never met her. Then there's Molly Tibbetts, beautiful young university student out jogging alone. She was attacked by an illegal immigrant and beaten, murdered, and hidden in a cornfield. Had never met her. My friend, Phil Vitrano's daughter, Karina Vitrano, the Long Island jogger, was out jogging. It was like the one day ever her father didn't jog with her. And she was attacked by a guy that didn't know her, Chanel Lewis. I believe he was about 27 years old, who beat her in much the same fashion where you're seeing Rachel Morin beaten dead. Now, I just spoke to a medical examiner that says even if a victim is beaten, horribly bludgeoned, seemingly bludgeoned dead, they can still tell if she was actually strangled dead or that there was another COD, cause of death. That is a rough update. Okay, there's a lot more to this. But joining me right now is Dr. Bethany Marshall, a renowned psychoanalyst joining us out of Beverly Hills. You can find her at drbethanymarshall.com. Dr. Bethany, I want to get your analysis of what we're learning at the crime scene. And again, I'm stating, Dr. Bethany, that I believe this to be the primary crime scene, not the secondary or tertiary, the primary. This is where she was killed. And I'm basing that on the fact that according to what we know right now, she was found in a pool of blood and there was a 15 to 20 foot blood trail leading to her body. That tells me that she was not killed at home or in somebody else's apartment or in the car, that she was attacked there with a blow, a vicious blow that started profuse bleeding, and that she made it or was dragged to where her body was found. And then somehow she ends up buck naked, which tells me sex assault. I want to hear everything. Start at the beginning.
Well, this does not seem to be the result of a domestic homicide or a stalker. And I'll tell you why. If it was a domestic, I think people would be coming forward about violence in her relationship with her new boyfriend. I think she would have been posting about it, talking. Heard about that by now, Nancy. Let's say this was a stalker. I mean, obviously she's a beautiful woman. If you've seen her Facebook post, her photos, she is gorgeous. She obviously knows many people. She has 5 children. So if you think of all the web of relationships that go outwards into the school, into the community, but we're not hearing of anybody stalking her. I think somebody would have come forward about that as well, or there
Can I
would be a
just
digital
ask you a
footprint.
question about the stalker theory you're espousing? A stalker would have had to have followed her to this trail, unless she had posted on social, "Hey, I'm going to the Ma and Pa Trail." He would have to have laid in wait and then followed her to this trail. Kind of reminds me of the Smollett claim, the big Jussie Smollett hoax, where he said he was being
That's
stalked.
right.
What, they're going to wait outside his high-rise in sub-zero weather till 3 a.m. when he gets the munchies? And they're going to just, predict from their crystal ball he's going to
Right.
come and go to Subway sandwich shop? No, that didn't happen. So if it's a stalker theory, how the hey did they know she's going to go to Ma and Pa Trail? No, I disagree. Not a stalker.
Exactly, because she went after work, right? I mean, they didn't report her missing because she went out shopping and didn't come home. She went to work and then she didn't come home. So it tells me that she switched it up and decided to go on a jog after work, and that this was a little unusual for her. And so, we tend to think about a stalker would have known her whereabouts, and, a stalker would have approached her at work. A stalker would have had been maybe cyberbullying her, maybe trying to ask her out on dates, maybe going to restaurants. I think of these stalkers as they're kind of they want to inject themselves into the social life of the victim. They don't want to meet the victim out in the wilderness on a trail, because stalkers want to be, a stalker would want to be her boyfriend. So if you want to be her boyfriend, where are you going to meet her? You're going to meet her in a bar. You're going to try to come to her home. You're not going to go into the wilderness and go on a jog with her. So I think we can definitely rule that theory out. So what does come to mind here, Nancy, is the brutality of the crime in combination with the remote area tells me that this was likely a serial killer's first or maybe second or third
Oh, I
kill.
just want to throw in
Because
one fact there. I don't recall that she was
sure.
going to work. I think that she said or indicate she was going to this trail. Now, I may be wrong
Ah,
because I'm covering a lot of cases, but just throw that into your analysis. I think
okay.
I
So
think she left at around 6 p.m. Jackie, tell me if I'm wrong. Okay, she left around 6 p.m. and went, and then her body was found less than 24 hours later. Now,
okay.
according to him, by Michael G. Many people think Michael, I think it's Gabreski, daughter-in-law, stepdaughter, found her. But that said, no one is denying his description of the scene. No one at all. Hey, Dr. Bethany, I'm going to throw in to you what I know about his description of the scene. Oh, and here's another thing for you to ingest. Her clothing. What happened to her
Mm,
clothing? Was it found? Was it taken as some sort of a trophy? Those are some of the things. Now, this is what Gabrzeski says that he or the stepdaughter, Cecilia, found. One, he kept thinking tunnels. You know those tunnels? It could be like a tunnel
mm-hmm.
that goes, a sewer tunnel or a drainage tunnel that's just, 5 feet in circumference. It could be a big tunnel like at Central Park when you walk under a tunnel that's just really, 20, 30 feet long, but it's big enough for a horse-drawn carriage to go through. There's many types of tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know which one it is. But Michael G. says he kept thinking about she's going to be near a tunnel. All right. He says she was found very near a drainage tunnel. She was lying on her back, fully
Mm-hmm.
naked with brutal head trauma. It looked like her head had been smashed with a rock. 3, a 15 to 20 foot blood trail. It looked like she was beaten and dragged into position, which brings up posing, Dr. Bethany. Another fact for
Mm.
you to put into your calculation. Also, the right side of her face was gone. This is according to him, and it looked like the killer was trying to erase her identity. Now, the sheriffs have come out and said, he's not the one that found her. Maybe that's
Mm-hmm.
true. Maybe Cecilia told him. Maybe he came up on the body later. But they are, and I want to reiterate, not denying that those facts are accurate. With all that knowledge, boyfriend, found her car at the William Street entrance to the trailhead, and boyfriend reported her missing. Boyfriend has record 14 arrests since 2014. Put all of that into the machine that is your brain and spit it out.
All right. So the fact that the man his stepdaughter found the victim, I'm not surprised he was thinking about a tunnel. My husband and I go hiking in Big Sur quite a bit, and often you have to walk through these big drainage tunnels to get up to the mountains, and people are going back and forth. But these drainage tunnels they're the most secluded places you could hide a body. So this seems to be largely theoretical. Like, of course, it could be psychic. I mean, remember with Kaylee Anthony, there was a psychic who kept saying she's underwater, she's in water, and then, of course, where did they find her? It was when the water receded that they found the bones. But I think it's more likely that this guy knew the wilderness and had some sense that this is where the body might be secreted. Now, the fact that there was such brutality inflicted most likely with a rock, it tells me that this could have been a serial killer in the making who his first
Okay, right there,
kill.
Dr. Bethany. A serial killer in the making. Okay, if this is the first kill, he's not a serial killer yet. And I want to talk about how people, they change their MOs. Like Ted Bundy started driving up to women in his, well, we think he started this way, in his cute little VW Bug, asking for directions or for help. He ended up, much like this, grabbing a log and beating women dead in a sorority house. That is a dramatic change of MO, and it reminds me a little bit of the way we believe Rachel Morin was bludgeoned dead with possibly a rock, whatever was at hand, which also tells me not planned.
Not planned, Nancy. We think of serial killers as, they want to kill somebody, so it's easy for them to do it. Oh, no, they have to work up their courage, just like you and I probably worked up our courage to go on our first job interview. These tasks in life, they don't come easily, and this is a very malicious, horrible task. But this guy, if he is a serial killer in the making, had a prolific fantasy life, probably a masturbatory life, where he thought about inflicting cruelty in order to engage in some sex act or to enhance his sexual arousal. So he's probably looking up images online. He's thinking
You know
about
what,
this.
Dr. Bethany, I just had a flash in my head. You must counsel some real wackadoodles out there in Beverly Hills, up and down Rodeo Drive, because you always talk about their masturbatory history. It just rolls off your tongue, so I think you've said it a lot. And inflicting pain in order to get pleasure. I'm not asking about your clients. I really don't want to hear that. But go ahead, albeit from me to stop you. Please, go ahead.
Well, I think such a key point that's rarely brought forward is that the neurobiology of serial killers, and that is that they're very deadened people. They do not experience excitement, joy, arousal like you and I do. They have to hurt people in order to feel alive, both sexually and emotionally. And so pain, death, killing, that's their entire MO, and it gets fused with sexuality because they cannot experience sexual excitement in normal ways. So think about this perp. He's going to try to find a place where there are women and women alone. We know where this trailhead was, where it was very near where women dropped their children off to go to school. They would drop the children off and then they would go hike. So check number one, he found a place where he could isolate the victim. Number two, he was patrolling that area for a long, long time. He just didn't go there to kill somebody. He probably hid in the bushes and watched woman after woman after woman walk by until he found somebody at just the right time of day or night, somebody who was sexually attractive or appealing to him, maybe someone petite, someone he could gain control of. And Nancy, so here, as I think is the interesting part, is the bludgeoning. I think this is very important that he bludgeoned, smashed in her face, left blood all over the place, because I remember a story told to me by a very good friend and colleague who was a prosecutor who talked about a man in San Bernardino Mountains who bludgeoned a woman's face. Then he rolled a huge rock over her to kind of pin down the upper part of her body. As she was, she died, and as the body was sort of degrading, he would come back and forth to have sex with her, necrophilia. So
Okay, I'm awake now.
rendering,
If there was any question that I was a little tired, I'm awake now. Um, I'm hearing you. I'm comprehending what you're saying, but how does your perv, who goes back to have sex with a dead body, have anything to do with Rachel Morin? Let's just get it back in the middle of the road.
well, the case of my colleague, they caught the perp by just they parked a patrol car near where the body was, and the perp came back to have sex with her. So in this case, so in this case, the fact that the victim was there, blood everywhere on her clothing, all over the scene, face bashed in, she was her face was unrecognizable. The upper part of her body had been obliterated. What's left? The naked lower part of her body. I mean, I hate to be so graphic, but this is where my mind goes, is that the uninteresting part, the face, he doesn't need that anymore. What does he need? The lower part of the body. What does he need? He needs a naked body. What does he need? Because this is perhaps a serial killer in the making. He needs lots of blood just to ensure that she's dead. And so what I make of the scene is overkill. Overkill because it's the first kill. And often when we see overkill, we think of methamphetamine too, because there's certain psychoactive agents that render these perps very energetic, very overzealous, and they go overboard. They're not sneaking into somebody's window and strangling them and then accosting the body. This is a frenzy. And it tells me that this guy, not only had he been working up to this, but he was ready. He wanted to do this. And in such a frenzy that I wouldn't be surprised to learn that he had either approached other women on the trail that day, or other people might have spotted a strange man out there.
It's reminding me of a case that I investigated at the time and covered of Jennifer Ewan on the Silver Comet Trail. She was riding her bike.
Yes.
She was horribly, horribly beaten. And that guy, the guy that killed her, I'll think of his name in just a moment, had apparently accosted many women on the trail. Michael Ledford, like he had spied on them. He had masturbated in the bushes when they'd run by. Oh, just all kind of stuff. And he ultimately murdered her. It's my recollection. Jackie, could you make sure that he had been on the trail committing other crimes before he murdered Jennifer? Another thing, I know nobody's ruled in and nobody's ruled out. And of course, you look at the boyfriend, husband, lover first. Because statistically, they did it. In this case, yes, he's got a horrible record. I know that. But wouldn't you think if the boyfriend, lover had done it, the love object, it would not have been on an open trail where he could have been discovered? It seems more like a crime of opportunity to me right now. On the other hand, maybe he was, hiking, jogging with her, and they got into an argument, and this happened. But it seems like if they got into an argument, why would he then strip her? It's not fitting together for me right now with the boyfriend. Am I saying it's not true? No. I don't have enough facts to say anything. But I have heard, just as you and I are talking, Dr. Bethany, that the boyfriend has agreed to give DNA. He volunteered to give DNA. I think that's a good sign. Question. Do you think if it's not the boyfriend, that the perp will come back to look at the scene? Think about Brian Kohberger, who I believe came back to spy down on the Idaho for the beautiful young Idaho University students that he had slaughtered. Also, you've got Scott Peterson, this is just off the top of my head, who would come back, and we know this because there's GPS tracker on his vehicle, to just look out over the San Francisco Bay to just see, hey, has Lacey popped up out of the water? So we see perps coming back to the scene.
Nancy, they come back to the scene for many reasons. Think about all the work that went into this, all the lurking, the stalking, waiting for the right victim, getting up the courage to do it. And lo and behold, there's a lady out there, and he can eke out his sexual fantasies as long as possible. This might seem like a silly, trite example, but if you ever, like, one of your kids had a birthday and you get the best birthday cake ever, and everyone gets a slice, you put it in the fridge, and the next day you're like, oh, we're going to have another slice, and then another slice. And there's something special about that birthday cake that everyone's enjoying it. Now, that's a very benign example, but think of the serial killer who has to kill and bludgeon in order to have sexual excitement. He's not keeping trophies or getting them just because he wants to remember that he killed the victim. The trophies are the pathway to sexual excitement. And he's going to eke out that sexual excitement as long as possible through voyeurism, watching the body, through maybe kind of a kleptomania or taking an object, maybe feeling the slipperiness of the blood, maybe coming back and accosting the body. But he's going to get, he's kind of like if you've seen like videos of out on the savannah, cheetah gets an antelope, and they pounce on the antelope, and they throw it around and they eat it, and that antelope has to last them a long, long time. And this body is meaningful to the perpetrator as long as it's there, as long as he can look at it, as long as he can gain satisfaction from it, he's going to use it. So
Hey,
I wouldn't
got
be
a question.
surprised.
I just popped in my head. If it is in fact true that the boyfriend has volunteered his DNA, I can take that in two ways. First of all, I could say, wow, that seems like he's cooperating with police. That's a good sign. Maybe he's not involved. Or that's the angel, and here's the devil. Hey, he knows, being her boyfriend, that his DNA, maybe even his sperm, is going to be on her anyway. So if they find it, it doesn't prove anything. Get it? So there's the two arguments about giving DNA.
Nancy, he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. Let me just tell
How do
you
you know
right now.
that? How do you know that? Because
Nancy,
he's had 14 arrests?
Exactly. The nature of his arrest, his rap sheet, the fact that he's such an obvious rap sheet. So I don't think this guy is clever enough to think up something like this. He's not listening to the Nancy Grace show. He's not watching true crime and figuring out that, if I pose as a serial killer, maybe they won't suspect me.
He's not thinking deeply. But hey,
No.
most criminals are not thinking deeply. That's why they always get caught. Actually, they don't always get caught. The ones that are caught are just a very small percentage of criminals that are committing crimes. Very small percentage. The huge bulk of crimes are never caught, and of course the perp is not apprehended. But of the ones that are, I don't think he's sitting around watching crime stories. I definitely don't think that.
Do you remember the case years ago when you were on HLN that a guy went to burglar a house and he tried to get down he got caught in the chimney?
How could I forget
that one?
Good times. Good memories. Yes, I remember him. Who could forget that idiot? So here you're saying, unless it was a spontaneous argument that they had while jogging or walking, many sleuths would rule him out right now. Yeah, let's think about that for a minute.
Let's think about that. So let's say, she's beautiful. She has 5 children. She probably has a lot of men who want to date her.
Really? You think even though she's beautiful and built like a brick house, you think guys want to sign up for 5 children? They don't.
That's a really good point. But let's say he imagines that. He wants to be a part of the family, but he is an abuser. He starts to get more jealous, starts to try to control her and dominate her. They go out on a hike. He starts to accuse her of flirting with another guy. That's how these things unfold. She defends herself. He picks up a rock and he hits her. Oh my God, she's dead. Is he going to continue to bludgeon and bludgeon and bludgeon until there's blood all over the place?
And then stage the scene, because she's dragged 15 to 20
No.
feet and she's stripped naked. That's either a sex assault or it's posing, staging the scene. And I don't see the boyfriend staging the scene. Now, here's a good stage of a scene. Jackie, who is Teresa? Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. The doctor down in Florida, who the husband, and his
Hired 2 people to come in and
his
kill her.
clone, his clone friend from high school. He look like twins. He gets his friend from high school, and another guy. To go and kill his wife, Dr. Teresa Severs, yes. And then they staged the scene to look like a burglary, but even an amateur sleuth could figure out it was someone that had the code to the home's burglary system. So many other things were out of whack. But there you see a loved one creating a spontaneous murder and then posing the scene to make it look that way. I don't think that happened here.
A lot of thought went into that. I remember that case where, his friend, his college friend, had to go to the house.
High school.
And, hid in the house forever. And then, didn't he stab her? Wasn't she a physician?
Oh, it was horrible. Yes, and she was tiny little lady.
Horrible. Always wore high heels.
Yeah, yeah.
Just gorgeous.
2 daughters.
Yeah, I think that's a one-off, Nancy. I think these kinds of crimes happen, these domestics, but this guy was really, that perpetrator.
Okay, this is what's
really
tearing me in
crazy.
half here right now. There's so much evidence, forensic evidence, to take into account, but there's also behavioral or evidence extrinsic to the body to account. One, yes, typically, 70% of the time or more, it's the love object. Okay. But in this case, it's out in the open. The scene was posed. There appears to be a sex attack. It was either posed or there was a sex attack. That doesn't sound like, if the boyfriend was going to kill her, I would think he would do it in a secluded place like their home, a hotel room, the car. This happened there. That's why I keep saying this is the primary crime scene, which changes the complexion, the composition of the investigation entirely.
So, Nancy, every domestic I've heard of in my practice where a man is angry at a woman or vice versa, and it spills over into like some kind of an attack, usually it's spontaneous, it's unplanned. Maybe they're at a bar and the guy says, oh, you're looking at that other guy, you're flirting. It's like the guy can't contain himself. It's impulsive. It's very rare that it's a planned killing this early in a relationship.
Oh, that's a good point.
Hey,
again, everybody.
Here's a thought really quickly.
Yes, please.
This lurker probably lives with his mother. So,
okay, I want to believe you, or are you sitting there with a big crystal ball in front of you just making this up?
I think that this guy is pretty low functioning too because he used a rock. And probably
Good
somebody
point.
who doesn't have a job, who puts a lot of time and thought into this, probably doesn't have a job, probably living in his mother's basement. Put out some kind of a public service announcement.
I've got to quit saying some lonely dude in his mom's basement, because my son has heard me say it so many times that spontaneously said, Mom, I'm not going to live in the basement, okay? I said, son, you can live with me as long as you want to. He goes, no, Mom, I'm not going to be that guy you talk about all the time that's in the base. Anyway, I just want to put the tip line out there. 888-540-8477. Repeat, 1-888-540-8477. You know, Dr. Bethany, as is so often the case, we've gotten nowhere. But what we have done is analyze the clues that we know of. Regardless of who found her, whether it's Michael G. or his stepdaughter or the stepdaughter's friend, no one is denying that those facts are accurate, and those facts are what will lead us to the killer. He will, and it's a he will be caught. Mark my words. We wait until justice unfolds. Thanks, Dr. Bethany Marshall. Goodbye. Guys, thank you for watching Crime Online with Nancy Grace here on YouTube. To get the very latest, subscribe to Crime Online here